Well, I'm going to take a quick break this time from movies of the 1940s and take a look at something a little more contemporary. This is the 2022 remake of the 1960s sitcom, The Munsters. And I caught this recently. It was produced, written, and directed by Rob Zombie. He is a heavy metal rocker and filmmaker who, to be completely honest, I don't know much about him. Only that from researching the film, turns out he was a lifetime fan of the 1960s Munsters sitcom, and what he made here was a very fun and colorful reboot of this series, kind of as a prequel of sorts. I think it worked really well. It's a very silly dedication to the original series, and it was very bright and colorful. So I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because I think it's worth checking out. Now look, I'm going to say this at the beginning. This is a weird movie, and it's not for everyone. Going into this is not Citizen Kane. It just goes full on crazy. It's big, colorful, like a comic book. And I know the original series was in black and white, but they decided to do this one in color. But it's not only in color, it's a vibrant, dynamic, eye candy color. Visually, it looks fantastic. The film is about 2 hours in length, and it just flies by at a dizzying pace. It opens up with a mad scientist building and animating a very Frankenstein-esque monster. But wouldn't you know it, kind of as a nod to young Frankenstein, the wrong brain is collected and used. And it turns out it was not the brain of an ingenious scientist, but instead it's the brain of a wacky stand-up comedian. One quick to fly with the corniest of dad jokes. And you guessed it, this is none other than the origin of the character Herman Munster, played here by Jeff Daniel Phillips. And he really just camps up the role in the silliest way possible. I mean, yes, no one's ever really going to fill the shoes of Ed Gwynn, but he still does a great job, and I really liked his performance here. Well, the story continues. We're at a big castle, and we have the character of the Count, played by Daniel Roebuck, with some really great makeup. And he's at home watching television with his daughter Lily, played by Sherry Moon Zombie. She's married to Rob Zombie in real life. And when Herman Munster is introduced on television, he immediately catches Lily's eye, and it's love at first sight. Now, of course, the Count isn't too crazy about him, and that drives a lot of the convoluted subplot as he tries to get rid of Herman. Also noteworthy was seeing the Count's companion, Igor, is played here by Sylvester McCoy of Doctor Who fame. Well, the film shows us the whirlwind romance of Herman and Lily, including their silly trip to Paris, including Herman wrestling with a monster in the Parisian sewers. And, well, I won't say much more about the story, but do they eventually find their way to settle down at 1313 Mockingbird Lane? Well, you'll have to watch the film to see. I won't spoil the ending. So, my thoughts watching this was that it was a tremendously silly film, but it really felt true in spirit to the quirky 1960s Munsters show. And along those lines, it's noteworthy that this is surprisingly tame. It's a family film. I think Rob Zombie is known for making gory horror films. I haven't seen any, but that's what shows up on his profile for the Internet Movie Database. But this Munsters film was, other than a couple mild adult gags, fairly safe for family viewing. Visually, it's a treat with all of the heavily saturated colors. And again, I realize the original is black and white, but this was just so good. I loved the way the colors were just so saturated on the screen. It is like a comic book, and it's done very well. I just really enjoyed watching this, not so much for the story, but for the visuals. And I'm also a nut for a good love story, even if it's a ridiculous one like this. And Herman and Lily have a very well-presented courtship, and they're married right away, and I really love the affection that they show for one another. I love things like that in a movie. Just don't give this one a lot of thought. The story seems to be all over the place with some unresolved plot threads and what I thought was a very abrupt ending. But you know what? It's still a good film. The visual style, the costumes, the makeup, the sets, and the acting, it's all very well done. The film is also loaded with some Easter eggs and numerous references to the classic Universal monster era, namely scenes with the mad scientist's laboratory, creepy old castles, the fortune teller out in the misty forest, and so on. Also, Butch Patrick, who played Eddie Munster from the original series, as well as Cassandra Peterson, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, they make some entertaining cameos as well. This could have been a fine pilot to kick off a new series, but my understanding is that never happened. So instead, this just kind of stands as a one-shot tribute. And Rob Zombie, I have a lot of respect for him for what he did here, because this really felt true to the original series. It wasn't really modernized or anything. Feels like maybe it could have been set in the 1960s, but it's hard to tell. But it's just a fun retelling of the origin story of the Munster family. It's not overly smart. The story's everywhere, but watch it for what it is. It's a bright, colorful, silly tribute to an old classic sitcom. I really enjoyed it, and I just wanted to talk about it. If you get a chance to check it out, I think you'll enjoy it as well.